Hey, what's going on? It's Inventor here, with my Razor Wings Spiritborn in Diablo 4, Season 9. I just cleared Pit 55 to unlock Torment 4, so I wanted to share my build with you in case anyone was struggling to reach the endgame with the Razor Wings Spiritborn. In this build guide, I'm going to cover my character, abilities, progression, and other relevant information. So first, I'll talk about my gear. Gear. First, we can talk about tempers. The weapon temper would be chance for Razor Wings to deal double damage. Offensive temper would be either crit or vulnerable damage, either one works great on this build. Defensive temper is total armor, not just for physical damage reduction, but to boost damage from the unyielding hits aspect too. For utility tempers, I run Vortex Size. Mobility temper would be movement speed or soar cooldown reduction if I wasn't using unique boots, and resource temper should be Razor Wings charges or Seeker charges otherwise. Next, I am going to discuss affixes. For affixes, I want dexterity on all my gear first and foremost, ideally as a greater affix. Max life would be the second priority. After that, there were a whole slew of modifiers that could help me out. In terms of survivability, I wanted to reach the resistance cap of 75% and 1000 armor at a bare minimum, but I also had a few life per 5 items to counteract the life drain from my unique chest armor, Jacinth Shell. For offensive stats, I would much prefer crit chance and ranks to a damage passive like Apex. Okay, now for aspects. First, on my weapon, I have the unyielding hits aspect on this ancestral glaive with dexterity as a greater affix. Unyielding hits aspect is one of the biggest damage modifiers available on Spiritborn, so the way it works is that it adds weapon damage based on your armor. So I scale up my armor as high as it can go, and then I can get up to almost 150% more damage just from this aspect alone. I also got all the right modifiers on this glaive too, including max life, vulnerable damage, crit damage, and Razor Wings double damage. My helm is Harmony of Ebawaka unique. It's a super important item. Long story short, I get almost 90% multiplicative damage from the unique effect alone. Plus, my skills inherit bonuses from other spirit halls too, which makes them even stronger. So regardless of what skill I use, I'll actually generate barrier off of Gorilla, and I can generate ferocity off of the Jaguar Spirit Hall as a secondary. Next is my chest armor, which is Jacinth Shell. I talked about this briefly earlier. This is a very important item. This actually does two things. One, as you can see from the stats, it gives a boatload of armor, which works well with the unyielding hits aspect for more damage. The second thing this does is that its unique effect drains my health to reduce the cooldown on skills including Razor Wings, which is pretty dicey since I can come pretty close to death with this. So if I even activate all of my skills right now, you can see how rapidly my health will deplete. But I do have some ways to counteract the life drain. In particular, I have healing potions, health regen from sources like my items giving me life per 5, and there's also the passive sustenance. Now let me just pull it up real quick here. Sustenance. So if there's like a group of enemies, I would just activate my ultimate skill, the Seeker, and that would pretty much heal me back up to full life in a lot of cases, assuming that the pack is big enough. So that is for the chest armor Jacinth Shell. Next are my gloves, where I'm running Conceited Aspect for damage while I have a barrier. This is pretty much all the time due to the Auspicious passive and Gorilla Spirit Hall. So I already talked about Gorilla Spirit Hall. When I use any of my skills, it will generate me barrier. But I also have this. Auspicious will just give me a barrier every couple seconds, even if I do pretty much nothing. As long as I don't take damage for a bit. So that is it for my gloves. My pants are Juggernaut Aspect with GA life per 5. Again, my armor is already at well over 1,000, even on Torment 4, but I need even more armor to increase damage from unyielding hits aspect. I would boost up my armor even higher if I could, but by the time I cleared Pit 55, I hadn't yet found equipment or used up enough Paragon points to get me to the armor cap. And even unyielding hits aspect didn't actually reach a maximum roll either. So that's for my pants. Now my boots are the unique boots Rakanoth's Wake. I'm using this mainly for resistance to all elements to help round out my resistances. You can see here that I'm actually really close to the cap. Once I use incense, I'll actually barely reach the cap of 75%. But also, the non-physical damage on these boots does help the Convergence legendary node. So, take a look at this one here. I get bonus damage equal to a percentage of my damage, or non-physical damage, more or less, and also physical, I guess. So that's where Rakanoth's comes in quite handy. The cooldown reduction reduces the downtime on all my skills as well. That includes Vortex, Soar, Razor Wings, Seeker, maybe not Withering Fist, but it does do cooldown reduction for counterattack, so that's 5 out of my 6 skills. So that's for Rakanoth's. Next is the unique amulet Lochran's Talisman. This boosts up my crit chance since it's actually pretty low right now on my build. Alternatively, I would like a legendary amulet with a damage aspect, dexterity as a greater affix, and some ranks to a damage passive like Apex would work too. My ring here is the Endless Talons aspect to pump up damage by up to 40% on all of my Eagle skills. That includes not just Razor Wings, but also Vortex 2. Or, not Vortex. Well, okay, Vortex 2, but the Seeker, mainly. This ring also has resistance to all elements for survivability. My second ring is the Fleet Wings aspect. I'm mainly using this to get unhindered, so I don't get stuck when activating Vortex, but there are plenty of better options for more damage, like Edgemasters, for example. The GA on this ring is life per 5, which helps restore my health for Jacinth Shell to help keep reduce cooldowns. Now, my sockets are emeralds in my armor for dexterity, diamonds in my jewelry for more resistances, and runes in my weapon and pants. Using only the runes I found on this character, the rune words I have are Kurgar in my weapon, and then Yax Zek in my pants. Kurgar gives me 25% crit chance after using 5 skills. Yax Zek reduces the cooldown of my ultimate by 2 seconds whenever I drink a healing potion. There are lots of better options out there with other runes, of course. For example, if I had a Que or Q rune, I could have done Que, for example, to get more barrier instead. As for my jewelry sockets, I didn't actually craft any of the Herodic jewels, but there are plenty of good options on the Herodic jewels. I don't remember their names off the top of my head, but there's one that gives more elemental damage or multiplicative, or 20% multiplicative damage boost for elemental damage. There's one that gives core stats and more life. All of those could be pretty useful. Those would be a direct upgrade from these gems, but I was just using what I had access to. that covers it for sockets. Finally, there's elixirs and incense. So for elixirs and incense, normally I say to run life, stats, armor, and resistances. Although unyielding hits does scale damage off of the armor stat, so if you want a bit more damage, you could run an incense like Song of the Mountain for more armor instead. Roderick powers. My catalyst on this build is Astral Pillar on Razor Wings. The infusion I'm using is Thunderous Particle to convert my catalyst to lightning damage and disable suppressor. My arcanas are Bloody Charm for execute, Fractured Core for damage resistance aura removal, and Invigorating Helix for fortify and heal to help offset the life drain from Jacinth Shell. Skills. Now, I'm not going to go over every point that I allocated on my skill tree, but I will say that there was an emphasis on putting points into passives that gave me multiplicative damage modifiers. However, the one passive that I'm going to discuss here is the key passive, Vital Strikes. Vital Strikes allows me to get more damage to vulnerable enemies and also heals me to boost my survivability and help offset the life drain from Jacinth Shell too. On my skill bar, I run Vortex, Soar, Razor Wings, the Seeker, Withering Fist, and Counterattack. The playstyle for this build is exceedingly simple. The main skill rotation is Vortex, Withering Fist, Razor Wings, and then Seeker. I use Vortex to pull all nearby monsters in. I hit once with Withering Fist to trigger the acceleration passive for more damage, then use Razor Wings to hit as many monsters as possible to trigger the reset on it. If I run out of Razor Wings charges, I use the Seeker to reset them. Then there's Soar and Counter-Strike. If I get CC'd, I use Soar for Unstoppable to break out of it, and I don't always activate Counterattack, but it has a passive bonus that gives me up to 30% multiplicative crit damage. If I were to use Aspect of Deflection, perhaps if I was using, or if I had enough armor so that I didn't need Juggernauts for some reason, then Counterattack could also be used to contribute bonus damage by bouncing Razor Wings back at enemies. I talked about this very briefly earlier too, but this is the Spirit Hall that I have. I'm using Gorilla as my primary Spirit Hall, so that whenever I use a skill, you can see that my barrier is just going up. And all my skills become Gorilla skills and inherit bonuses from whatever Gorilla passives or effects I have from my items. And then with Jaguar, I get maximum ferocity too. And I believe ferocity is used for increased attack speed, if I'm not mistaken. So that's my Spirit Hall on the Razor Wings Spiritborn. Paragon. When I cleared Pit 55, I used up 179 Paragon points, which is roughly Paragon level 150. I used the starting board with Headhunter Glyph, Convergence with the Talon Glyph, Sapping without a glyph, Drive without a glyph, and Viscous Shield with Spirit Glyph. I had the Spirit Glyph at rank 46 plus for the legendary bonus, Talon and Headhunter Glyphs at rank 15 or greater for the radius increase, and their bonus is active. If I had other glyphs available, I would use the Canny glyph and the Menagerous glyph to get more damage, especially from the additional bonuses. Mercenaries. My hired mercenary in this case was Rahir to get resistances and damage. If I had enough resistances from my other sources, then I probably would have used him to give me armor instead to max out my unyielding hits aspect. My reinforcement in this case was Varyana, and I set her to give me Bloodthirst whenever I activate Razor Wings. Progression. From level 1 to 60, always open up with the first quest of the seasonal quest line in Karagar to get access to Herodic powers and the reputation board. Then, in my case, I went through the Vessel of Hatred questline all the way up to roughly level 58, and then I did a couple of strongholds and turned in renown rewards to reach level 60. This leveling method got me from 1 to 60 in a little over 3 hours. If you want a more exciting alternative, from 1 to 50, you can run Helltides on normal and then turn in all of your Aberrant Cinders on Penitent before the end of each hour to maximize your XP gain. After that, it would be Strongholds from 50 to 59, still on normal difficulty, and then open Renown rewards to reach level 60. From Torment 1 to 4, in Torment 1, if you use the Vessel of Hatred campaign leveling method, speak to Ormus when you make it into Torment 1 to get a free set of 750 item power gear. Alternatively, use any obols or pale marks you have to upgrade your equipment with some 750s. Then, run Herodic Strong Rooms to obtain any missing Herodic powers, and for some XP. By the time you take on Pit 25 to unlock Torment 2, you should have at least 1 or 2 legendary nodes on your Paragon board. In Torment 2, your primary focus should be on getting uniques, so you need to run Whispers and Helltides in order to farm boss mats. This will also help you gain gold, gear, tempering recipes, aspects, glyphs, materials, pretty much everything your character needs to progress in Torment difficulties. If you find Torment too difficult, feel free to drop the difficulty back down to Torment 1 until you feel stronger. Once you have the uniques for this build, you should be ready for Torment 3. In Torment 3, activate any rewards you have from the reputation board in Karagar or the season journey to try and get ancestral equipment for your character. Masterwork rank 4 minimum on all of your gear. Level up whatever glyphs you have to rank 15 at least, and maybe even 1 or 2 more legendary glyphs if you feel your damage is a bit low. So in my case, I used 5 legendary nodes and 3 glyphs before I took on Pit 55. All of this together should get you into Torment 4. Last season, when I played Razor Wings, it definitely felt a lot worse trying to reach Torment 4. But with the increased damage on Razor Wings and the reduced monster health, the build feels much better than it used to, and it is pretty fun to play even if it does not have insane damage numbers. I hope this helps. If you made it this far, then a like, comment, or a subscribe is always appreciated. But otherwise, that's all from me. Thanks everyone for watching, and Venture out.